thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this morning or afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Harvard Ostgaard. I'm the Director of Botanical Solutions at Species 360. And together with me, we have Dr. Wahid Arsad.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Wahid, and I've been working with Harvard for the last 3 or so years. And I'm a botanical scientist in the team, helping to make sure the product meets the requirements of the community.
Yeah, thank you. So today we're going to walk through some examples of how we might help you and also give you a bit of a background of how we work. So we hope at the end of the day, or the end of this session, so that's set to be 45 minutes, that you have a good grasp of what we are trying to do and how we might be able to help you and your team at the zoo or aquarium. So before we start, we're trying to get a bit of engagement here. We also want to learn. We always like to learn what's on the top of mind with our community. So before we sort of get going properly, I would like to, if you could, either use your smartphone to scan the code, or you could also use your browser. So we will send a link to a page. We will just do a few questionnaires or polls for the whole community. So that just to get a bit of insight into your situation, it helps also for the conversation further on. So if you have any questions during the session, feel free to just raise your hand with the sort of hand symbol in Zoom. If you're not familiar with that, you can also use the chat function, and we'll keep an eye on that. And even still, you could also unmute yourself. We're not a huge group today, so that should also be fine. I'm going to let this stand for another 30 seconds or so, and when we get the survey up or the polls up, we'll resend out this code as well, so that we can have you in if you didn't get in now. So if you have problems, you can also ask on the chat. But it should work quite nicely, and it's quite nice and easy to do it on the phone. It's probably quicker sometimes than on the desktop. Okay, I think we are ready to move on. So first, some of you, or probably most of you who work at a zoo, we invited the members of Species 360 to join today. So you probably heard about ZIMS, and you're also probably somewhat familiar with the mission of Species 360, which is summarized as a foster international collaboration in the collection and sharing of data to improve species care and conservation. Now, it's actually 2024 is the 50th year anniversary for Species 360, so that's a great occasion. And it was end of 2022 that we joined Species 360 to increase the scope to also include flora. So up until 2020, end of 2022, Species 360 had focused on conservation and for animals, and now it's also plants. So that's truly exciting, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on, what impact that might have as well. The other thing I want to say about our background, we started on Hortis about 4 years ago, and we had our first users logging into Hortis about 2 years ago. So Hortis is quite young, but it's also then very modern in its sort of from its design and technology, which hopefully comes through today. And I've been working on this problem of how we can improve the life of record keepers for over 15 years. So it's great to see you all here today as well, and then see if we have managed to make some progress in these years. So the first thing I want to also say is that the team, I'm based in the Netherlands, Wahid and the rest of the team working on Hortis are based in the UK, and the rest of our team at the Species 360, we're a global non-profit, and we're about 50 people. The reason we mention this is that we are quite a big team working on the same type of problems or challenges when regards to technology. So there's a lot of benefits of having all these resources to build something, what shall I say, useful for the community. And what you also see today, some of you who might be familiar with ZIMS, is that ZIMS, as you may know, is through process of modernization. So SIMS and Hortis will in the future be more and more aligned from the way we build software together. So lots of good and happy news going forward when it comes to technology and how we can help the community.
Yeah, thanks, Havard. And as you mentioned, the holistic approach now is quite different. And I think with international awareness and concern for the environment, there's a lot more synergistic views of biodiversity conservation. And this was apparent in this particular journal that was published by BGCI, that's the Botanic Gardens Conservation International. And this one came out in 2004. So that was 20 years ago. And you can see that the topic was Botanic Gardens and Zoos Synergies for the Future. And you can see from some of the articles there, menageries to master plans, linking the botanical with the zoological, plant education, and so forth. And so we know that as a community, botanic gardens and zoos and aquariums are all part of the story when it comes to conservation. And since this particular article collection came out in 2004, there's not really been that much progress in the extended community. And we want to try and help you all with your record keeping, both with animals and plants, and hopefully strive towards a better synergistic future towards biodiversity conservation as a whole. And that's hopefully something that comes out today.
Okay, so we're going to start off with one of a couple of polls. So how do you manage your plant records today? And you got 5 options. I hope that we should meet the most variants out there. So, this is completely anonymous, so you don't have to be shy if you're hesitant to share your current situation. We'll let this roll for a few. I'm not sure how many we should wait for here, but at least I see that there are some people who've just joined. There's one joining now. So if you might send out the link to the Menti in the chat. So those who joined just recently, we're using Mentimeter, and there will be a link to that poll that you can then participate in. The definition of tailor-made system in our case is if you have something like a system made with Microsoft Access or FileMaker Pro, or some of those kind of systems where you can design your own somewhat more advanced solution than a spreadsheet, then you will fit into that category. Yeah. We look here that 41% are on spreadsheets, and there's no doubt about that. Spreadsheets are the most common plant record solution on the planet. It's very easy to get started. And we know by experience also, if it doesn't necessarily scale very well, but it's a good start. It's much better than nothing, for sure. So we have a couple of other questions we want to ask you. So I think, what do you think, Wahid? So we count to 10 if nobody else, if we have quite a few respondents. Maybe people had difficulties to join or sign up, but there's something on the chat. Let me just make sure there's any questions here. No? Okay, great. Then we'll move on to the next question. So in your current situation, how satisfied are you with your plant records? And this is completely anonymous, just to be clear. So there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Great to see someone very satisfied. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah. And I'm sort of I'm just trying to think about, we've done this survey many times before as well. And, there's very common that it's leaning towards left of neutral, let's put it that way. And arguably some of the big challenges people have is prioritization. How much time do you have for other things? And this is a bit like maybe for some, like sending in your tax return and other administrative chores. So these are the kind of things that we obviously want to help with, remove friction and make it easy for you to carry out these what's so-called chores. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. I think we'll move on to the last question, which is a word cloud. So what are the biggest challenges you have today? So then you could use up to 3 words or phrases you might want to express that sort of summarize what you find, what is preventing you from moving towards very satisfied. It could be funding, it could be time, it could be other resources. Yeah, there's time and cost already in. And yeah, staff time. Lack of available systems. Record all plants. Organization, standardization, no software. Ambivalence. I think that's a challenge for many, and that's what we're going to talk a bit about today as well. The sort of challenge, the usefulness of records, basically the return of investment, to use a bit more of a kind of a term in business, if you like, how much you get out of the effort you put in, and that's a balancing act for many types of activities, and this is what we also want to help with. Not enough information. Yeah, management.
If somebody wants to shout out and tell us a bit more, then feel free.
Okay, location mapping. Yeah, we'll show you a bit of that as well. So that's really helpful. Thank you so much. Part of the story here is, of course, you might notice that you're not alone if you're struggling. These are sort of, but time, you can see, are often repeated a lot. And that's another thing we try to resolve with Hortis. Okay, so, and this is some numbers from Botanic Garden Conservation International, which, so as a community, as a global community, there is actually less than or more than 80% have very basic solutions for plant records. And if you look at the challenge from the report from Q, the state of the world of plants and fungi, 2 in 5 plants are estimated to be threatened by the extinction. And many people claim, or rightly so, I think, that the way to sort of combat plant extinction is a collective effort from all botanic gardens and also zoos who have plant records and their plant collections. And having no records makes that sort of potential that of success very, very much reduced. So part of the story here is, if you don't know what you have in your collection, or nobody knows what you have, the chances of you being able to participate in any way is very small, very limited. So by changing this graph to at least the opposite, 80% have a good system, is part of our mission here to help institutions to participate in plant conservation. But I also would like to stress that that doesn't necessarily need to be the primary driver for you to get plant records. There are many other reasons to get good records, which we'll talk a bit about. But this might be the sort of one of a very significant driver for quite a few gardens and zoos. Here, I just want to make it a bit of an emphasis on how we approach this, and or how we can help you. And the way we think about plant records is that the first step is to get what we call healthy plant records. The reason being is that if you can't rely on your data, you can't use it for much anyway. And we have defined healthy plant records as sort of 4 pillars. If we start on the left here, we have taxonomy. So basically getting your scientific name in order. So if you have misspelled a name, for example, and that might be a valuable plant from a conservation perspective, that might not be discovered because you basically, it's a different name so than the actual correct one. So we've spent a lot of effort into making that easy for you. We'll show that a bit when we show a demo of Hortis, which comes with a fully integrated taxonomy backbone from Plants of the World Online. So you get all the wild occurring species at your fingertips. That helps an awful lot in terms of improving quality. The second pillar, if you like, is what we call the inventory gap. So think of that as the difference of what you have in your records and what's actually happening in the zoo in terms of plants. There will be plants that are dead, that are moved, that doesn't exist anymore, but they're still on the list, or there are plants that have arrived that's not on the list. So that inventory gap you want to keep as small as possible, so that you have so you can rely on your records. The 2 others, provenance, where did this plant come from? Provenance can be very important if it's conservation material, but in other cases also if for other reasons. And the last one, plant identification, being able to record uncertainty if that's what you are about a certain identification. And this is something we want to work on from a platform perspective as well, to allow you to maybe share or get assistance from peers on plant identification. We don't have much of that just now, but that's something we have sort of recognized is very, very much a needed kind of capability. And with the cloud product, that is also feasible, much more feasible than what you might have if you do sort of other types of platforms. So the story here is that as soon as we have all these 4 things in place, we can move over to having records that can be used to support your institution for a bigger impact in research, conservation, education, heritage, and horticulture. We know that there's some good papers on zoos and how many zoos who consider plants an important part of their work, and that's way over 50%. And many have plant labels, and they will use that maybe for an educational program, etc. And of course, if your records are reliable, that whole narrative becomes much easier, or can be very problematic if the other things the case. Ghosts of Horticulturalist Past. Yeah, sorry, I just saw that message here. That's a beautiful Christmas theme there, almost. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So that's where we want to help everybody so that you can, as an institution and a team, be more impactful in your work with less effort. So I will now hand over to Wahid, who will talk a bit about Hortis and also run through a demo.
Yeah, thanks, Havard. So yeah, as we heard earlier, that ZIMS during its modernization efforts is also going to become a lot more aligned with some of the technology that is being used in Hortis today, and that's going to pave the pathway to a lot more synergistic kind of approaches that we talked about earlier. But Hortis, on the whole, is a mobile and maps first kind of analogy that we have. So we want you to be able to do things from any device, including mobile phones. If you're out in the zoo, maybe you're in front of the enclosure, or even in the enclosure if you're feeling brave. But you can do and make your changes and record the data where the action happens. And having that portability on multiple devices certainly helps with that. Mapping is also something that we've had a lot of positive feedback on this, being able to search, filter, do things from the map. That is a very interactive way of digesting your records. The other thing is it's always available, so it's based on the cloud, and that's why you can use it on any device, and all you need is a browser. So whether it's Chrome, Safari, whatever you use, it's very easy to get started. There's no installation. to worry about, or any maintenance, so you can forget all of your IT headaches that you might have had with some of your other systems. So finally, we want to make experts and beginners feel at home. So our designer, Dave, has spent a lot of effort on making sure the whole product and all of the workflows that we have are easy to use, and they feel light. But at the same time, you can choose to do some really powerful capabilities, and more of those will come in time as we grow and meet the needs of the community. So with that, we want to help you to become more accurate with your record keeping. So, scientific names, data quality, more up to date, reducing that inventory gap that Havard mentioned, and then for you to be able to use your plant records as a strategic tool. So to help you grow as a zoo, as an aquarium, how can you utilize plant records in the strategic growth of yourselves as an organization? So with that in mind, I will share my screen and we'll run through a very short demo. And feel free to ask any questions or in the chat or raise your hand. But this is the dashboard for Hortis. So when you first log in, this is the first screen you see. And just as an overview, this is there to give you a quick snapshot of what's going on in your collection. So you can see here that we have accessions, which are similar to what you probably have in your zoo at the moment. It's a group of plants, in this case, of the same taxon that have come from the same source at the same time. And then you have plant materials, which are tied to a specific location, and that's your sort of day-to-day record, your operational record, if you like, on what you do on a day-to-day day-to-day side. And then you have taxa, which are the individual species or subspecies that you might have. So you can see how that's looking like in your collection today, and also what that looked like last month. You can also see an activity log. So because each individual logs in as their own account, they can all see what's going on. So for example, Havard's been busy making changes 7 hours ago, and I've also been busy as well. So as a group, as an institution, if you have lots of volunteers or lots of record keepers or part-time staff, you can collaboratively look at what's going on. Here we have 2 charts. The first is a red list status of your collection. So you can see, from a conservation potential, or if you're just curious of what kind of species or taxa that you have, you can see what the potential conservation impact of those are. You can, and also we have the provenance of your accessions. So, for some institutions, they might go on collection trips and source material from the wild, and some might be just from garden origin. So the point is, it's a snapshot and it's a dashboard to give you that data first approach to your record keeping.
Just to also add, the ISN red list data is something that's provided through Hortis. So when you identify or record a scientific name, that red list information will be automatically given to you. So you don't have to manage that yourself.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, and we can have a look at that also a bit later on when we look at the taxon page. But let's take a look at the plant materials, because this is probably the view that many of you are probably going to be most familiar with. And this operates a bit like a spreadsheet, but a lot better than a spreadsheet. So for example, you can do some searches. I'm just going to try a Quercus search. You can see I've actually misspelled it here intentionally. But you see here we do return the relevant records because there's an approximation search going on in the background, as well as an exact match. So if you're not familiar with scientific names, or spelling if it's a bit challenging for you, Hortis can help you with that. You can also use common names to search as well. So for example, oak. is another good example of finding your relevant records. So if you're not familiar with that, you also have that option. The rest of the fields are fairly self-explanatory, and the way they work is, you can search for particular locations or enclosures, perhaps. So just as an example, I'm going to select this particular bed. And then you can combine this with the search. You can really build up quite complicated kind of queries based on multiple filters and multiple searches. So that's how the filtering and searching works. And what's worth mentioning here is that you can always download your data. So here on the top right, you can download that as a CSV, and you can even download a subset of your collection as a CSV, and that will give you a hard copy that you can further manipulate externally if you like. So we're just going to go into a record for now and see what that looks like. So when you open a record, you can see the rest of the information contained within it. We have, many fields. I'm not going to talk through every single field here, but key things to mention are observations. So you can add when you last saw the plant, you can record the condition, and you can also add tags. So in this case, this particular material is part of my fall trail and it's a champion tree. And you might want to add things like browse material or toxicity to your taxa that we'll look at that in a second. The map as well, we have notes and we have full activity log. And this is to help you, have full transparency of how the record has changed over time, especially if there's lots of staff. If you're fortunate to have lots of staff working on your record keeping, you can see, how that record has evolved over time. And especially if you make a mistake as well, that's also very easy to see how that can be reverted.
Just to add a bit more context to that audit log is that we see that a lot of people are super happy with it because it gives people much more confidence. So we record absolutely all the changes that happen to every single record or every single field. So that gives you a lot of transparency in terms of what is happening. And we don't have undo yet, but that's technically something we can also add from, so that will come quite soon, I think. Thank you.
Yep, good point. The other thing is that making edits is simple. So editing that on the side opens a drawer and you can change the fields. You can also share records. So sharing the record will mean the URL is copied. So if I send this now to Havard, take a look at this Quercus, he goes directly to this record, and that can be really powerful from a sharing and collaboration perspective as well. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the map. So the map we've spent quite a lot of time on because the mapping element is a key way of viewing and consuming and searching your collection, and can be really powerful in many ways. Everybody loves a good map, and we do too. So we want to help you to do all of the workflows that you saw from the list and also from the map. So for example, you can search your collection from the map as we saw earlier. So I'll just put in the Quercus example. You can see where all your oak trees are. You can hover over the pins. You can click on the pins and see more details about the record. You can even reposition materials. So moving an oak tree is a bit of a challenge, but conceptually you can see how that might work. This is we're actually moving the base map here, and the material will just be confirmed in a new position. And furthermore, we also have a variety of base map options to help you. Sometimes aerial imagery might be quite good in certain circumstances, but some institutions also have a high resolution drone map. So we can integrate that particular base map through Hortis, and you can use that as an option as well. So there are a few approaches depending on your situation. The other thing I want to add is that all of these workflows are also possible, as I mentioned earlier, on any device, on any platform. So, if you're standing in front of the enclosure and you want to mark a plant as dead, it's very easy and quick to do. The last thing I want to talk about is the way that you might use Hortis in a zoo or aquarium setting, and the way we were thinking about some of the workflows and talking with zoos. And just as an example, the tags can become really powerful here. As an example, I'm just going to search for Aeschylus, and you can see this particular one I'm interested in. So I'll click on that. And at the top here, we have the material, the accession, and the taxon. So it's a nice, easy way to navigate through your collection. And when I click the taxon, you can actually see some of the data that gets pulled in automatically through the integration with Plants of the World Online and also through IUCN. So you see the red list status is here, and some of the taxonomic information is also visible. And this all comes for free. So you don't have to do anything. When you create a new accession, you fill in the scientific name, all of this gets automatically included. So it's very powerful. But what I wanted to mention was that you can also add tags. So for example, this might be toxic, it might be browse material, and you can, add tags and use them in a very flexible way. And when it comes to, you can also add notes here. So when it comes to searching things in your list, you might be interested in, finding things that are browse material or that are toxic. And the way to do that is you look at the tags, and you can add a filter here. And these are some of the tags that I've created in the past. But for example, if I search for all of my browse material, I will get Aeschylus, Barago, and Camimelum. And if I preview some of the notes, you can see that this one I've added is a browse material for the red-faced spider monkey. And it's also toxic to certain animals. So there's going to be a lot more of this these workflows that we're going to explore further down the line, but these are some of the ways that you can use it today. You can also search for notes as well. So there's a lot of flexibility there. But for now, I think I'll leave it at that and hand back to Havard.
Okay, thank you very much, Wahid. Okay, so yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility for you, so that you can yeah, get not only use the data, but also we didn't show so much about how you can record data very quickly, but there's a lot of capabilities there for help you to get these records at a good level very quickly and with a minimum of friction. So we thought, as I mentioned, we've had Hortis live for nearly 2 years now, or a bit over 2 years, and we have quite a few zoos already on Hortis. It's also very nice to see that we have it on sort of 5, 6 continents, not Asia yet. So there's a nice community here already, and we are working definitely towards helping the community also with the last group we had that was questions around SIMS integration and Hortis integration. That's definitely will come. There's no such thing yet, but there's a natural progression for you so that it can help you and the team to curate the data that relates to the animals and vice versa. So we saw that you could do that already, but we will continue to improve on that particular score. One thing that's interesting here as well, which is mentioned, is of course that we anticipate that a lot of conservation work will go towards a combination of, when you talk about habitat restoration, for example, it's always animals and plants. So the roles of zoos is arguably broadened to some degree, and the collaboration with zoos and botanic gardens will probably increase as well. So lots of interesting and exciting opportunities going forward. So here are some stories that Wahid, maybe you could talk about.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we've, well, our aim is to support the whole community of zoos, aquariums, and botanic gardens, and no matter how your expertise level, we want to cater for everybody, and this is just to showcase some examples of zoos who have very actually important collections of plants and who do a lot of conservation work as part of the animal conservation. So, for example, Chester Zoo, they have nepenthes, these are pitcher plants, some Matucana cacti, and some orchids. They have nationally accredited collections, and Rotterdam Zoo is also another good example. One of few zoos who can cultivate this Rwandan water lily that you see in the middle. And also they have this Amorphophallus titanum, the Titan arum, which is a show-stopping plant that many botanic gardens have as well, and it really draws in visitors to the zoo. And on the right, we also have San Diego Zoo, who have many important collections of plants from orchids and cycads, among others. And the key point here is that you can all take part in this and become, if you wanted to, accredited for your plant collections. Rotterdam and San Diego are two examples who have actually become accredited with BGCI. I know that's not for everybody, but having good quality plant records and up-to-date data is certainly a good step towards that direction. So we look forward to really helping as many of you as possible.
Yep, thank you, Wahid. We, for those of you who have not heard about Hortus before and think you want to learn more, you can always, on our website, you can book an appointment for a closer chat. There's also an opportunity there to sign up to get a free trial of Hortus. Yeah, maybe also worth mentioning here that we've sort of set up a special early bird discount for anybody of the Species 366 members to sign up before the 30th of August. So you get 20% discount on your first annual subscription. That is probably what we have to share today. But we have time for questions. So if you have any questions, please share that with us and we'll see what we can do. I was trying to recall some of the questions we had in the previous session as well, Wahid. Was there anything particular we did touch on the download thing and a few other things? No? We have 3 more minutes. We're ahead of time, which is amazing.
I have a quick question.
Oh, yes, please. Was that Lauren?
Yeah, that was Lauren. So my question concerns kind of if we do have plant records in a spreadsheet and we want to transfer all our plant records from the spreadsheet to Hortus, but maybe there are different fields, and particularly our current records, not every entry will have an accession number. And a big challenge, I imagine, for myself and the group of people who would be transferring these records is keeping the accession numbers straight as we transfer from an Excel document to a program like Hortus. Could you just give me a little information on like what that would look like? Would that be entering kind of validating every entry, or is that kind of like on an autofill almost?
Yeah, so first of all, we would help you to get the data over, and we have quite a lot of tools and experience in tidying up. And obviously, if you have accession numbers, then normally you would like to retain those. And for those entries that doesn't have a number, we will then help you to basically give you advice on what we think is the best approach in terms of assigning numbers. there are different sort of what should we say, strategies to use there, depending on your data. So, but yes, we definitely have done. I've been involved in 100+ data transfers like this, so we have good experience, and we'll advise you on what we think is the best approach, and then help you from that point onwards. So it's usually, especially from spreadsheets, it can be, as you probably have experienced, quite unwieldy at some point, and quite hard to actually clean up manually in the spreadsheet as well. So one thing we always do is to say, send us the spreadsheet and we can have a look and then discuss whether you want to do something yourself first, or how much help you want from us. So that's the best I can say, basically, on how we can help you.
Awesome, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
I think we had a similar question. Can we bulk import from IRIS-BG and other products?
Yeah, that's at the moment we don't have any technical sort of solution for you to just do it on your own. We have some guides, so we can help give you some advice on how you can prepare your data, so it's sort of very what should I say, cost effective and affordable to get it loaded into Hortis. But this whole thing about managing, and it's quite an art, quite a technical thing. It quickly becomes technical, but we will eventually have some capabilities for you to load in data, spreadsheets data, but we don't have it at this point.
Another question about what institutions have converted to your system in 23-24. Did they already have well-established computerized systems?
There's a good mix. I would say there are some who have used some professional products, and so our goal with Hortis is to support all common workflows in botanic gardens. There are some capabilities. I know, for example, some gardens produce seed lists, seed catalogs. That there's some sort of, what should we say, niche features that we don't have in Hortis yet. So those kind of features that might be something that will prevent some people to join us just now. But in general, I think if you're on a spreadsheet, or if you use some of those professional products in a sort of a, what should I say, a modest way, then we already are able to help you to, what should I say, improve the way you can operate from a plant records perspective. But there's a good mix, everything from starting from scratch to people who use professional systems and just want to, especially what I think one really great story I feel is the one from the garden in Utah, Wahid. Maybe you can mention that, with Tohunu Chul, who had 40 volunteers.
Yeah, they started from a spreadsheet of very basic plant records and managed to get 40+ volunteers involved, and they had a few inventory days where everybody was out in the garden on their mobile phones and iPads, and they basically went from a very basic spreadsheet with a fully imaged and georeferenced with all pins on the map, and photographed collection in a very short space of time. So yeah, that could be you.
Yes. So
yeah, I was just saying, we've got 2 more minutes for last minute. We have 2 questions about adding. Well, what we can do actually is we'll collate these questions and we'll do a follow-up. So if we didn't get around to covering your question, we'll have a blog article with some of the other questions that we missed.
That's great. Yeah, we'll share the video, and we also share the questions with the answers. So, but if anybody is okay to let it roll over, we can try to answer those questions just now. So, but if you need to go, I would just like to say thank you so much for joining us. We'll stay in for a few more minutes so we can answer the questions live here, because that might be helpful. It might be some follow-up questions to the answers. So, but anyway, great to see you all. That's fantastic. But then I will quickly. So I want to add also, on the blog, you will see that if you go to hortis.com and look at our blog, we have about 3 or 4 success stories about other institutions that have adopted Hortis. And there's not one on zoos yet, but that will hopefully be remedied in the next 3 to 6 months. So, but have a look at those. That might inspire you a bit. And let's look at the questions. it's impossible to add a group rather than individual plants? That's a very good question. Yes, there is, when you add plants, there is actually a tick box to say this is a group. So that is definitely something you can do. We have combined 3 collection sites into one system. How can we do that with you? There's no restrictions. Oh, hello, Shari. Yeah, I could see you. Yeah, I think that it doesn't matter. You know, there's no constraints on the size of your garden, if you like. So that could be a country or a small backyard. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't have any constraints in that regard.
What's also nice is that in Hortus you can actually manage separate sites if you wanted to, and you can join and be invited to other people's sites. So when you control your members, you can have, you know, admins, you can have read-only users, you can have editors, and you can really bring in a lot of collaboration elements there as well.
Let's see, here's from Julie. So if I enter in a plant, say an oak, will the system load information stating what parts are toxic and what toxicity is, etc.? Well, at the moment, this is definitely where we want to move. So for those of you who know ZIMS, one of the strengths of ZIMS is that there's a collaborative, a shared data set of medical knowledge and husbandry. And with Hortis, what we have already is some shared data when it comes to life form, distribution, ICN rating, so you don't have to manage that. And I think definitely this type of information is something we will move towards as well, so that that can be shared across the whole community. And yeah, that will help a lot for obviously this type of work. But we're not there yet, but we'll come there. So, and Peter Paul, yes, how precise is the mapping resolution? That's a very good question, and a very common question as well, because there's sort of like 2 different stories here. The actual coordinates that is recorded is extremely precise. You could technically have a map that will pinpoint small cacti in pots on the desk. So the resolution or the precision on the coordinates itself is very accurate. Now the second question is whether you are getting a good, accurate read from your GPS receiver, and that is the ones you have on your phone, your sort of consumer phone, will typically not be good enough to get very good fix is the term in the GPS world. There are some expensive but also very precise equipments out there. But what we've found is that for a lot of gardens, the requirement for precision is to be able to locate the plant again. That's sort of the main driver, not necessarily for construction work or anything else. So by using approximation, and you saw when Wahid shared the map, you could see points on the map, buildings, other things, and then you can also see the relationship with other plants in the vicinity. And all those things combined can actually create a very accurate map. There's one technique that some people use, which is quite advisable, is to get maybe a professional company to survey the big trees with precision equipment, and they will become the first reference points in your garden. And then you start building up maps from that. But with a good satellite map and other things, you will. It's quite hard to. It's quite easy to get quite good maps, especially if you're dealing with trees and woody specimens. Thank you. I'm sort of holding back here because I could talk about this for quite a bit. So, but if you have questions, anybody about this, then please share. And this is one of the bigger challenges we have, or that we really want to make this easy, because you know, if you start to look at purchasing or starting to use GIS products, that's a big field, a big field of expertise that you might need to dive into. But we're trying to help you to get good maps and good maps for your garden without having to become an expert on GIS. So we're doing more on that this year as well. Thank you, Peter Paul. Okay, and I know it's very late, but I see Jim, our CEO, is with us today as well. Maybe you could say hello to everybody before we close down for today.
Hi, everyone. Thrilled to have you here. As Howard mentioned earlier, we're hitting 50 years of serving our zoo and aquarium and related institution community, and we are thrilled to do the same kind of work with conservation and data sharing, genetic conservation, all the other things that we do for animals. We're thrilled to start doing that with plants too. So very excited to offer Hortus and hoping to build the same kind of partnerships with your community that we do with the folks down the hall working on the animals. So please do reach out if you're interested in talking more or learning more about what we're doing.
Okay, thank you so much, David. And thank you everybody for joining us today. As I said, if you don't subscribe to our blog, do that now so you get notification that when this recording is out with the article with all the Q&As. And then further down the line, if you want to learn more about how to get started with Hortus, just contact us on the website. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining.